Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm joined by Filippo, another Yale student who also does content. So we're gonna talk today about just questions you guys have sent me regarding college admissions since we both just went through this process.
So I'm Filippo, as Christian said. I'm an international student, first year here at Yale, and it'll be cool to talk about sort of your guys' questions about how we got in, how's the process, and how can you guys make that happen as well, because it's a long and arduous one for sure.
No, literally, I agree so much. Okay, so let's get started. Just to clarify, we are not admissions officers, so we're students. I mean, we've both done our research, I would imagine, on the process and have educated guesses as to how admissions officers see things, but we aren't them, so just take everything we say with a little grain of salt. So for the first question, we were asked, what is the biggest thing that you think made you stand out in the admissions process? What do you think is your biggest thing?
Okay, so for me, I'm gonna give some context really quickly. I'm an engineering student. My thing is building. I have a software background mostly, although I'm trying to get more into mechanical engineering here at Yale. But yeah, basically, I think what made me stand out and something that you guys can apply is the competitions that I did, the international competitions that I did. So one of the things I did was an autonomous drone delivery service. I co-founded that with a friend.
That's crazy.
And we participated in the World Robot Olympiad and won second place worldwide. That's not to say that, okay, I'm gonna take that at face value and then go do that. No, use it and apply that to your own path, but try to position yourself in a way to where you can have tangible numbers about something that you did to show colleges that, hey, I really do give my best for this sort of project or whatever your area is.
Yeah, I think for me, what made me stand out the most, I would say, is probably the kind of combination of interests I had. So I guess you would notice if you watch any of my prior videos about college admissions, but kind of my two main interests in high school were STEM and also music. So and with STEM, I was kind of into physics, applied physics, quantum computing, that type of stuff. So I think I took both of those interests to a pretty high level. For STEM, I did a pretty selective program called Might Semester, which is by MIT, and that program in and of itself has good matriculation, but also I took my music and cello to a pretty high level as well. I did National Youth Orchestra, and I think the combination of both of those that were at a high level is not something that a lot of people had, and I think that's what made me stand out, because I took two interests and took them to a high level. And a lot of people might have one interest, take it to a high level, or just a bunch of broad ones, but I think having two big ones can be a nice way to stand out too.
That's impressive. That's awesome.
Thanks.
So the next question from you guys is, what do you think is the biggest misconception people have about getting into Ivies? Would you like to start off with this one?
So I think the biggest misconception that a lot of people have about getting into an Ivy League is there's a lot of just rhetoric spread online that it's impossible. I don't know if you, not to call anyone out, but there's this TikToker that makes videos about reviewing people's applications. I don't know if he knows what I'm talking about. Or I don't know if he does Reels, I know, but there's a lot of really smart people that get rejected from universities, and this leads people to kind of get this idea in their head that oh, it's impossible to get into an HYPSM school unless I'm perfect in everything, and even then it's not gonna be enough. But I feel there's so many people here with such a broad variety of backgrounds, and that aren't necessarily perfect, and people that someone might think they're normal, and there's just so many people here, and genuinely it's possible. I know so many people, even from where I'm from, that have gone to amazing schools by working hard, so it is possible. And I just think it's kind of toxic when people kind of spread this idea that you have to do everything you can, and even then you're not going to get in. I think it's a kind of crazy idea.
No, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, what it does kind of come down to is how do you present yourself in the best light. And although that sounds pretty vague, I think what that represents is identify your interests, sort of what makes me happy as a person, as cheesy as that may sound or whatever, and then try to find ways to show that to colleges, but just in your day-to-day life. For me at least, what I did in high school was what I probably would have been doing anyway, plus or minus a few things, just because I really love engineering, I really love playing the piano, I really love running and doing triathlons, all these different things are things I would have been doing anyway, but then you kind of have the lens of the college admission cycle sort of interfering with that. So try to not focus so much on the admissions lens itself and focus on how can I live my life in a way that makes me fulfilled and at the same time showcase that.
So the next question we got was like, what is demonstrated interest? Does it matter? And like, how do you show it? So I can just quickly like answer my thoughts on this one because I have done a lot of research on like the admission side of things. And so demonstrated interest is this idea that like you can show interest in a college and that will like affect your admissions outcome. So that could be by like attending events, visiting that college, and doing things of that sort, or like emailing your admissions officer, which honestly, you can actually find this information online by looking through, each college has a common data set, where they have like the like boxes of what they find important in admissions, and 90% of like selective universities like do not care about demonstrated interest. So I would say like, honestly, it doesn't matter. Like you should be going to like these events and stuff and like learning more about colleges, but it's not gonna like actually help you in the process.
Just purely do it for you and for your journey. Like going to a pre-college program at Brown is going to get you into Brown.
Oh my god, I actually know, I know someone that went to a pre-college program at Brown. That's crazy. And especially like those pre-college programs too, like when they're like, a lot of them are paid. So like, I feel like that's like one thing where it's like they see through that, like.
And realize that it's just a way for the universities to make money off of empty classrooms in the summer, right? And so that's kind of the idea of them.
Not to shit on pre-colleges.
But yeah, do them because it fulfills your story. And like, for example, if you want to demonstrate that you're an engineer focused on humanist projects, right? Attend a program focused on that sort of thing. Maybe that you're investigating aqueducts in underdeveloped countries and how to make them more efficient, things like that.
That's a crazy example.
Yeah, that was honestly just on the fly. But just like anything, really, it can be anything, and not just pre-college. Really, try to gear your application to just showcase your voice. That's the most important thing. Voice is something I think that people get lost in when they're chasing stats. So don't chase stats.
That's actually so real. I that's not something I thought about before. Okay. Actually, I guess you can read this next question.
All right. So the next question is, how much do extracurriculars matter?
In my opinion, I would say like, I feel like extracurriculars are honestly like the most important thing in your application.
Most definitely.
Because like, I come from a school where there were like a lot of people that were academically motivated, that had good grades, honestly really good test scores. It wasn't necessarily the majority of school, but there's a large population of people in my public high school that did have those good grades and test scores. But even so, like, I was the first person in 4 years of my school to get into Yale, and then we'd have like 25 plus people like apply every year. So like, it's just because those grades and test scores, they're a benchmark and it's not enough. And like, I mean, like, of course, these like recommendations and all of these other little things matter, but I think the main thing that differentiates you from like everyone else is like the caliber of extracurriculars you do and like the type and like your involvement in all of that.
Absolutely, because I mean, at the end of the day, what you do outside of school really is who you are and ergo your voice. And so if you're able to sort of stand out and again have that spike that people like to call it, whatever, that's where you can get into these schools. And at least for me, and certainly for Christian as well, I think that was sort of the main thing that got us into these schools, because like everyone can have perfect grades, especially at certain high schools, for example, might have grade inflation or things like that. You can never really know. So it really does come down to how you portray your voice through your activities, and I guess awards are kind of part of extracurriculars and things like that.
For this next question, how many leadership positions did you have, and do you think they matter a lot? So what about for you?
Yes, I think they definitely do matter. But just to clarify, it's not about spamming all the clubs at your school and being like, okay, I'm gonna become president of the chess club, the softball team, of the whatever, and everything, and just not showing that, I keep coming back to this, but it's so true, a cohesive story. What you want to do is sort of craft a narrative about yourself through your leadership position. So for me, I co-founded several tech startups, some of which got acquired, some of which we continued, some of which we competed with the World Robot Olympiad, for example. And that was just because I like to do those things, and I was crafting a narrative that I'm an engineer who wants to build humanist technology, and so that's the best way to do it in my opinion, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I had a few too. Honestly, I didn't have that many in my high school. The main ones I had on my application were like related to like my music honor society at my high school, and I did some other like ambassador thing that I was like co-president for. I guess actually that was kind of a random thing on my application. But like other than that, like my other big officer position was that I was like a recruitment director for a music nonprofit. That's like national, but basically I feel like essentially what you were saying, like you shouldn't spam leadership positions. Like that's not gonna help you. Like I think very much of like, I mean, I will acknowledge, like honestly, like college applications can be a little fake. Like it's not necessarily that it's like you're lying about things, but it's like you are portraying things so that you're telling a story that's cohesive and like that has like that engages readers. So I really think that like you have to kind of like hone your extracurriculars in a way where like you're highlighting like specific interests, like exactly what you said about like yours. Like that was like you had a very specific vision. Like you're basically branding yourself, is how I like put it. Like
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, college admissions and getting into these schools is who can tell the better story.
Yeah, and
so
I feel like that's like what makes you memorable as an applicant too, because like I think there were over like 50,000 people that applied to Yale this year, and like maybe they accepted like 2,000 or something. So it's like you really have to like be able to tell a very engaging, cohesive story that like is memorable. Like for me, like I was like, I'm the like cellist who's like interested in like STEM, also in like quantum computing and like bringing these technologies like to life. And that was like the story that I told. Also like things about my identity, like being like half Puerto Rican and half Laotian, and like being like kind of, I guess, self-motivated too was like kind of part of my story as well. But like I basically sold that, and like leadership positions are just like one way to like kind of like make that story more convincing, I guess.
Absolutely. The next question is, how affordable is applying? So I imagine they're talking about the application fees. Short answer, not affordable. Especially if you want to.
How many schools did you apply to? A lot too, I know.
I applied to a lot. So probably like in the US, like 11 or 12. And so if you do the math, $70 per application, it's a good amount. So be careful, don't spam them. The reason I did that is, as an international student, we are kind of disadvantaged in terms of financial aid. I didn't need financial aid, and most of them are need-aware schools, and so I needed to maximize my chances that way. And there were only a group of like 10 or 15 that even give financial aid to international students, so I basically applied to all of those. But yeah, be very careful not to spam them too much.
Yeah, I will say, I applied to 18 schools. It was expensive for sure. But there are some ways to reduce the cost which people aren't actively aware of, I would say, because low-key, they're a little gate-capped. I feel like a lot of knowledge is kind of gate-capped, but basically, one of those big ones is like fee waivers. So if you apply to like fly-in programs for some of these schools, which they are these programs, I've spoken about them on this channel before, that you can like, they'll fly you out to their university to kind of like tour it. I mean, they're hard to get in, but even if you apply, like typically you'll get a fee waiver for some of them, and where you can just apply for free, which is nice. And also, I know certain schools like MIT, you can just request a fee waiver without having to prove like any sort of need and like apply for free. And also, more generally, if you are low income and like Pell eligible or like whatever, you can actually like request fee waivers for like all of your schools, I think, and apply much cheaper that way. So definitely, like if you are low income, like I think broadly there's a lot of resources to help you, like, and you should like try seeking those out because they exist.
Absolutely. And just one more note on like the money side of things. Even if you're not super low income, even if you're sort of just a normal income sort of family and come from that background, college is really expensive. And
For sure.
but people need to realize that, especially at these top schools, maybe like the T20s, all of them basically, if you get in, you're probably going to be able to go because they offered what's called need-based financial aid. This is something I didn't know about until entering my senior year, because it's just like not a thing I guess people talk about. People are always like, oh, these colleges cost $100K a year.
Yeah.
That's not true. You're only paying that if you can pay it. They ask for your income, everything. But the crucial thing is that it's mostly just that these like T20s maybe extended a little more. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's the motivation, I guess.
Yeah, I will say going to Yale is actually cheaper than some of the less prestigious schools, including ones like in state that I got into. So these like top schools do offer like really good aid because they have huge endowments.
Huge endowments. But
Yeah.
I guess that's the benefit of being, the very few that get in.
Yeah,
essentially.
for sure.
So just have that as a consideration, that it's really good if you do.
For our next question, we were asked, how long did you spend on your essays? So I think it's the trauma, but I guess maybe you can break this down into like when did you start and like how consistently did you work on them till your due dates?
Yeah. So for context, I applied to Harvard early REA, early action. Yeah. Now we don't like Harvard.
Yeah.
Yale versus Harvard. There's a whole one privately. Anyway, I applied to Harvard REA, so I started my essays around August, September, to submit them by what was the deadline? November 1st.
Yeah.
August, September, and so submitted that, and then my mentality was sort of have the regular decision ones in the back burner, kind of hooking up and basically ready, so that come December, if I got rejected or deferred, I could spend a little bit of time on them, but not that much. So I did probably like 50% of my essays, just because it's a lot, before that December, and then once I got deferred, I finished them all. It was a tough like 2 weeks between December 15th and December 31st, but it's possible. It was a lot of hours though, like literally December 15th through Christmas, basically every day, 7 hours a day.
Holy, that's insane.
Grinding essays, basically.
Yeah. Wait, leading up to like then from when you started like your Harvard essays to like I guess whenever like REA came out, like how much would you spend like per week or like?
It's probably not that much actually.
Okay.
Like, to be fair, I probably procrastinated my regular decision ones too much because I was overly confident I would get into Harvard. Spoiler alert, I did not. And so do not do that. If you do REA or early decision to a school, have your regular decision essays ready. What's the worst thing that can happen? You get into your dream school early decision, and then you wrote those essays for nothing, sure, but then you're gonna spare yourself the more than likely outcome of having 2 weeks to write all of your regular decision essays, which for me I think totaled 56. And so you don't want to do that. What about you?
So I actually started pretty early. I started maybe late May, but because I was kind of scared. I knew I was gonna apply to like a good bit of schools. Actually, I think at first I was planning like 12 or something. We'll get to what happened later. But basically, I worked pretty consistently. June, I think, was a month that I worked like a lot on my essays. I don't think I got anything done, but I did a lot of like, I guess like back-end work of like planning and other things on my application. Especially also like my Common App took a little while to refine. And then I started focusing more on my supplementals, which I did not have done. So I then had a summer program during July, so I took kind of a break. I didn't really get back into like the essay writing grind probably until August. But then I was like pretty on the grind. I also I applied to 5 schools early action, I think, which were 2 state schools and then 3 like non-restrictive early action schools, including like MIT, which is like my dream school or whatever. But didn't work out. But at the same time, so those ones I had to like make sure they were done by November, but I still wanted to get all my essays for my other schools done by not much long after, like early December maybe, before those decisions came out.
Be more like Christian.
Yeah, I will say though, something that did happen was that I didn't get into like MIT or like the other out-of-state schools I applied to early action. So I kind of panicked and I added like 5 schools to like applied to, 5 or 6.
Really same.
Yeah, so, and then that also like December 15th through 31st or whatever, that was like pretty bad for me too. It wasn't like, probably not as bad as you, because like I had the other regular decision stuff that I was already planning to apply to like written up, but I added like 6 schools to my list because I was panicking, and like that took a bit of time. I would say when I was like really, I think I was semi-consistent. Like in the summer, it was probably like maybe like an hour a day, so like not that much. That's gonna be it for all the questions on my channel. If you guys want to watch the second part of this video, it's gonna be on Filippo's channel. Please watch it. Again, thank you so much for watching this video, watching my channel. Stay tuned for more Yale content that's gonna be coming up, and subscribe to both of us.
Absolutely.
Bye.
I'll see you over on the next video.